the Mixotexture members site, which is right here at courses.mixotexture.com. This is a really cool place. You can log in for free. You can set up your account and get free presets, Ableton resources, stuff like that right here. Interesting things to play with. What I want you to focus on today is the course called Harmony for Ableton Live Users, which I'm going to show you an actual lesson from this course. We're in the building basslines module. We're starting with basslines, and we're going to play along with the track we're listening to right here. Get ready for this. Hear that bass line? Today we're going to learn how to build that bass line, and if you want to get a hands-on guided Ableton project where you can learn by doing it, this course is the place to do it. It's called Learning Harmony. This is what it looks like inside the project. You get audio files to listen to, MIDI instruments to play with, and audio instructions that guide you through activities where you actually learn by doing it hands-on inside Ableton, where it's the most fun, not watching videos. To sign up, you just click the green button. It's pay what you want. Throw me a little cash for building the lessons, and that's the way it works. And if you want to support the Mixotexture community, what you can do is sign up on Patreon for $10 a month. That is from right here on the top of the site, support Mixotexture on Patreon. That's for something like if you just really dig the live streams and the track feedback and the exchange of ideas in the community and everything that's going on, sign up for $10 a month. It might not be a lot of money for you, but it makes a big difference for me, and I really appreciate your support. So let me get into the Mixotexture group and find my stream. There it is. Building a bassline. Click to expand. Who's here? Mohammed, hey. Let me know if you can hear me and everything. I think the audio is coming through. And let's go into live. Yeah. Sometimes that monitor laptop is a little slow. So let's check out this session lesson right here. We're inside Ableton. Yeah, right. Let me just triple check on that. Yep, we're in screen share. Yep, we're in live. Okay, so I like to present these in the form of basic problem solution kind of challenges. So let's say that somebody gives you a track to work on and you need to put in a bass line. Or maybe you're doing a remix and you want to keep the original melody and drum beat of a track, but write a new bass line that's in the same key, sounds good, fits together, but it's not just copying the same notes. There's all kinds of things you might want to do for recording a bass line. I don't know why my screen's frozen. I'm not going to worry about it. So how do you go about doing that? How do you find the right notes to play with and get your bass line together? Well, I recorded this lesson to help you go through that whole exercise. So let me just show you one of the starting things. First, let's meet the scale. This song is in the key of E flat minor, and you're going to use these notes. So this is kind of cool. The lesson's built in with notes that tell you what to do, audio instructions, MIDI clips, all that kind of thing. So I'm going to take over from here. To make it easy for you, I gave you the starting note and the key signature for the track. All right. Got my monitor screen up. Let me know if you can hear me, see me, say hi, and everything like that. And let's go for it. So, I don't want you to have to memorize sharps and flats and music theory on paper and all that stuff like I had to do in music school. I like to teach by playing by ear. So what I did was I cut a bassline loop. Let's listen to this and just identify that's the harmonic home, okay? Here we go with the audio. Get your ear into it. And you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to go into full screen camera land so you can actually see what I'm playing on the keyboard. Because now that you know we're just listening to an audio loop, most of the lesson is going to take place in your ear and in your brain and on the keyboard. You don't really need to see what's happening in Ableton because it's just a synth instrument and an audio loop playing. So that's the note E flat. That's the upper one of the two black keys. And what I'm doing so far is just playing this audio loop and identified the starting note. Like you have to find harmonic home and identify the most common note, the one that it starts with maybe, or the place that it's always returning to. That's going to be the base of our scale or the key signature, okay? And once you have that, we're starting on the E flat. The next question is to identify what key we're in. Is it major or minor? You don't have to know the word key signature. You don't have to know whether it's major or minor. I give you that stuff with the lesson on the scale. So here are the notes we're using in this scale. That, to make it really easy for you. And that's a descending scale motion that just forms 5 notes. Really simple. There are kids' songs that are written with no more complicated notes than this. And when we put them together in the track, we get a cool kind of harmonic motion. Let's listen to that again and see if you can identify those pitches. I'm going to put my keyboard up an octave to make it a little more clear. Oh, and then at the end, it did something a little different. With a little rhythmic variation to signify it's the end of the phrase, a turnaround is coming, going back to the beginning, back to harmonic home. Keep it rhythmically interesting so it's not just one loop that goes on and on and on and on forever. So the first thing we did was we listened to the music, identified what note is it starting on, what's the harmonic home. I gave that to you as a place to get started from with this E flat. If you didn't have anybody in the world telling you what note to start on, what you'd have to do is listen to the audio and go through all the different notes on the keyboard and listen and really like find which one sounds right. It's almost like beat matching if you're like listening to one record and trying to beat match another one, but we're doing it harmonically. So you listen to the tone and the feel of this one record and then find the note that fits. After that, think about what other notes are happening, and I gave those to you. And that puts together the key signature, the scale. Is it major or minor? Well, here's what a minor scale sounds like. And it has that kind of dark, sort of melancholy sound as compared to, and that's E flat minor. So how about E flat major? It's like a happier kind of a sound, right? Now I'm going to play E flat minor again. That third note is a little dark in the minor scale. Boom. Versus the third note in the major scale. Here's major, and here's minor. Happy kind of interval. Not so happy kind of interval. What's an interval? A combination of 2 notes. So a note is just a note. It can be sharp, it can be flat or natural. A note cannot be major, minor, or anything else. It's just a note. But hey, Tommy, what's going on? But when you're playing a combination of 2 notes, that's the basis of a chord. So what I'm doing is I'm telling you how to write a bass line and how to copy the bass line in this track, but I'm really giving you the vocabulary of music theory so you can communicate with other people and tell them what you're doing in the music. So for example, like when me and Tommy were playing dozens of shows and he'd be like, what key is this track in? And I'd be like, I don't know, G minor. And he's like, all right, G minor. It's going to have a G minor chord. It's going to have a D7 and then some other stuff in there. So he would know what scale to play on the trumpet and where to go harmonically to get back to home when it's time to get back to home and to depart into interesting jazz licks or whatever. So the difference between major and minor, if you can identify that by the feel of the music or some kind of emotional connection, you are like 99% of the way towards understanding what scale we're in. So let's listen to this scale again. I'm going to play the audio loop and then play a major scale on top and a minor scale on top, and let's see which one sounds better. So here goes the audio loop with a major scale. Yeah, that wasn't quite doing it for me. Killing the game, Tommy. Thanks. I mean, a lot of those notes felt right with the major scale on top of this loop. Let's do it again. I'm going to play a minor scale and just kind of jam on the scale notes and see what sounds right. And I know most people are not going to be able to just whip off major and minor scales on a keyboard, but you do have push available. If you have the push, you can set it to a major or minor scale. You can see which notes are highlighted and figure out what's going to be working. And as soon as I do this example, I'm going to show you what it looks like inside live to make this even easier for you. Hey, Lauren's here. What's happening? Here we go with the audio. I'm going to play E flat minor and see if the minor scale fits better. That was a lot better. I was really hitting that third. 1, 2, 3. When I say the third, it's a third note in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That sixth was important too. In minor, the third and the sixth are going to really tell you a lot about the tonality of the scale. So in a major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now a minor scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh. So in a minor scale, here's the third and the sixth. That's the third step of the scale and the sixth step. And in a major scale, here's the third step and the sixth. So what I'm telling you is that if you want to get from major to minor, the third step of the scale and the sixth step of the scale are the ones that are shifting to give you that sound of happy and sad. That's it. It's really not that hard when you figure that out. And see if there's any questions. Nope, we're all good. So let's keep going. Let's analyze this bass line. I want to show you in Ableton a little bit like what you'd be seeing if you're looking at the lesson. So here's where I give you the notes from the scale. This is built in the program here. Now it's your turn. Go to the next activity and play along with the music using these notes. Just like before, it's your job to find where they fit. And okay, so that was that example of what notes are happening. And then we got an odd example, what we just did. Here's, I give you an example inside the lesson to demonstrate what was actually in the recording so you can see the MIDI notes, hear how they sound, and even get the names off of the notes on the sidebar. Now, you heard me do this a minute ago, but I wanted to show you inside live what it looks like. And another thing that you might find useful is in the Ableton notation, you can see that these are only written with sharps. But all day so far, I've been saying E flat, E flat, E flat. Well, E flat is the same as D sharp. B flat is the same as A sharp. Those are enharmonic equivalents. Enharmonic, good vocab word. So don't worry too much about what it says on paper or in live, like A flat or A sharp versus B flat. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing I want you to grab is how does it sound and how do you get to make it sound like what you want. So if you can find the root note, you're getting there. If you can find some other pitches that are in the scale, you're getting there. And then if you can identify the actual scale you're using, then you're there, because once you have the scale, you know if it's major or minor, you know what other tones are in there, and you know what notes we're going to use to build chords later, which is where we're going to eventually end up with learning harmony. If you have any questions, let me know. If this is confusing, let me know. If you want to throw a tomato at me, you could mail it and I'll throw it to myself. So let's listen to the audio again. Did we create this bass line yet, or is it not ready? Let's listen. Well, I'm hearing a bunch of other sounds. It sounds like or down low again. What am I doing? What am I doing to make it sound more rhythmic? What am I doing to make the bass line sound like it's moving faster even though it's not? Take one more listen and see if you can identify the lower notes. Okay, back in camera land. What I'm doing is playing octaves. So we started with the notes in the E flat minor scale. Now let's find the second note of those. Like another place on the keyboard where we can find the same note is with an octave. So it's like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Same note, same sound. How many notes away? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 like octopus, like octave. So if you go up 8 steps in the scale, you get back to the same note again. It's really cool. So when I'm playing that bass line, I'm not just playing those original notes like this. I'm actually doing octaves below to make it sound like the bass line's hitting down deeper, getting more sub frequencies, sounding heavier, all those good things that happen in low frequency. You can get there. You don't have to EQ it. You don't have to sidechain filter it. You don't have to do different compression. You can do it by composing a bass line with lower notes in the lower octave that give you those lower frequencies. Oh, what's up? Hey, Nick's here, Dave's here. How's it going? So we're going to identify the octaves from all those 5 notes and then put them together into the bass line. So the first one was E flat, and the octave is up here. Once you kind of get the idea that they're 8 steps apart, it's pretty easy to find them. Our original bass notes are like this. So we got this B flat. Where is the octave from B flat? So we got the E flat, same note, B flat. I used to do this when I was teaching kindergarten. I would play a note and tell the kids to find the other octave, and they always got it. So really what you do, you kind of just look at the keyboard and find the pattern visually. But if you're on push and you want to do that, you need to find... What's going on with my push? Maybe I won't go into push right now. You have to find the squares that light up identically, and it gets a little bit easier. But it's always by the sound, right? So here we go with E flat, B flat. The next is the A flat, G flat over here, same sound, and F. Matthew Strauss, how you doing? And back to E flat. So now let's listen to our audio again and see if we can identify where are the high notes and the low notes, or the high octaves and low octaves. I think it was going something like, the first thing I noticed was that the harmonic home happens with the E flat, and the next note of the bass line is lower. It goes like that, right? So there's like a little compositional game. Now, when you're trying to decipher someone else's work, usually you can figure out they were not writing it on paper, trying to make a puzzle like a crossword puzzle. Pretty much they were playing it on an instrument, and something about the workflow of that instrument made their hands move a certain way, or their thoughts go on a pattern or something like that. And you're trying to figure out the pattern that they're playing to explain what they are playing so you know why it sounds like that. So when I heard that the second bass note goes down, with that B flat, I got the idea, oh, this person's playing with octaves. And it's kind of a game where there's like a up and down, faster rhythm, more notes happening, sounds more interesting, getting low frequencies and high frequencies, and it's not just doing a predictable, not just doing that descending scale motion, but you're doing it with octaves. So type in octaves if you're with me so far. I'm trying to make it really simple so you understand that we're hearing a simple scale. Even though you're hearing what I'm playing is octaves, bouncing around, high notes, low notes. I'm doing this thing with my hand. But I want you to just get the idea that we're playing a basic descending scale that comes back to harmonic home. It starts here, and it ends there. Doom. Now let me make it sound like a bass line. Dave said octaves. Sweet. Thanks for watching and hanging out. So now I just played along. I put the MIDI keyboard into 1 octave lower and got it to sound like a low bass. And that is pretty much all that's happening in this bass line. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to make any crazy tricks. Most music, especially electronic music, harmonically, it's really simple. There's not a whole lot going on. And once you figure out the root note and then the scale, you can pretty much build the whole track just by knowing those couple basic things. Now, I know not everybody has memorized all the scales in the world. You can't walk up to a piano and play them, but you're getting there. They're all basically the same when you recognize about the intervals. So constructing a major scale and constructing a minor scale, when you know the starting note, you can build a scale on any of the 12 keys on the keyboard once you get a little bit more familiar with intervals. So we can talk about that later with whole steps and half steps. What I want to do is explain one last thing here about delay effects, because this track, again, we're going to listen to it, and you might hear that there's a little bit of sound bouncing around. Take a listen. What is that? On that first note, it sounds like there's a little bit of an echo on here. So what I did was I built a lesson that has some delay effects automated into the this MIDI clip, so we can watch. Oops, better go into screen share. Okay, so what I've got is my MIDI instrument and a delay effects unit over here that I set up to make that a feeling of sounds bouncing around. Isn't that cool? So check out what happens when we play this clip. There's going to be a little bit of automation, and hear what it does. Now I'm going to fire the clip and see if we're in the right ballpark. All right, so what I'm doing in the original production, there's a little bit of delay happening on the bass line, so it bounces around. It kind of emphasizes the harmonic home because that low E flat note is getting into the delay, but the rest of the scale is not. So I want to show you how I did that to make it so it's not a whole bunch of harmonic mush. I automated a delay send with the send A going to the delay effects unit, but it's only on the first E flat note. All right, this one right here. You're only going to get delay on that note so that the delay feels clear and it's harmonically focused, not like a big mush of delay. Let's listen to this example again. So all the upper notes are not in the delay, only the starting note. Listen to what happens if I turn up the whole thing. When all those higher notes in the scale are bouncing in the delay, all of a sudden they're on top of each other and you don't feel the harmony changing from one step to the other. But when you have the delay only on the harmonic center, the root note, somehow it brings the whole scale back to the harmonic home. I think that is so cool. It's a really effective way to make a busy bass line that sounds like it's keeping the track moving, even though the BPM is not going faster at all. You're playing the same notes, 5 little notes. Whoa. Hey, delay. The name of this lesson could be how to write a really exciting bass line with only 5 stupid notes. That's all it is. 5 notes from a minor scale. We found the root note, established that it was minor, not major. We picked out 5 tones that the scale was going through. And once I kind of felt that feeling of like, oh, it's going down in steps, I realized, okay, the bass line is going in a scalar motion. It's following a scale, going downward from the root to the 5th, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, back to harmonic home. And then it was a little complicated to figure out that bass line part because my first reaction was to go up and use octaves like this. But that's not actually what it's doing. It goes down first. It's kind of inside out. It's like this. So the lower note is coming up first, just like you would play with stride piano where your pinky hits the bass and then the chord comes up higher. So that was a little bit of a trick, a little bit of a puzzle. Dave said, dope, thank you. And once I figured out the puzzle of doing the lower octave note first, the whole thing came unraveled. I knew exactly what the bass line was. I knew how to put the notes in the right beat. And then there was a little bit of sound design with that delay to just kind of make it cool and make it feel like, you know, electronic-y bouncing around and all that kind of thing. So the rest of the session lesson is kind of a fun one. I like to put in examples and activities. So if you download this lesson, here's what you would actually experience. Now it's your turn. Listen to the next music, play along, and figure out which one of those MIDI notes sounds best. That means we're playing the same bass line pattern, but you might use the higher note or the lower note from the octave. Play along, see what you can do, and after that, I'll show you what I did. So I'm telling you basically, kind of like I just did in this video, here's an empty piece of music. You go to this MIDI instrument, find the notes, and play it. How do you find the notes? Well, let's see what happens. Now, before we go on, I want you to find all those notes on your keyboard or on push. So select the MIDI clip in track 2, do Shift Tab so you can see the piano roll, and play until each one of those notes lights up. I mean the black and white notes on the side. Play along until you find all those notes. It's the same thing we played in the previous example. We're just doing it up 1 octave and down 1 octave. Okay, this is how I solve the problem of people who don't memorize scales on the piano anymore. Because honestly, I know you guys are not sitting in a classroom with a teacher and a piano and music theory. So I made this MIDI clip, and thank you to Daniel in Romania for this idea. And he said, yeah, well, why don't we make a MIDI clip that shows the notes, but then they're blanked out. So what you do is when I touch my keyboard, do you see how those notes turn red? And I can see that there's only a few notes to choose from, right? So all right, that note is on that line, so I'm going to play that one. There's an F over here. I got to make that one light up. There's this F sharp over here. Okay. I'm playing a note, but it's not lighting up red. Must not be the right note. Nope. I'm playing a note, but it's not lighting up. Must be the wrong note. Aha, that one's lighting up. That way, by playing along on the keyboard and finding how to make these sidebar piano roll notes light up, you can identify exactly which notes you're supposed to be playing in this whole clip. Oh. That sounds like the first 5 notes of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then how about the other ones? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I hope the light bulb comes on in your brain. What we're doing is playing 5 notes of the scale in 2 different octaves, and that's what's inside this MIDI clip to tell you those are the notes to use. Hopefully that's going to work for people who can use a session lesson at a distance for learning music theory and harmony without having to memorize sharps and flats on paper for 3 months like I did. It's cool that it's good when you finally know how to do it, but it's not always so easy. So let's say you just did the activity, you were playing along. Now what happens? Play the next example and listen to what I did in the MIDI clip. All right, I'm giving you the answer. So if you're like me, you want to explore, you want to play by ear, you want to have some fun, but you also want to know if you're doing it right or doing it wrong. So I thought I'll give you the answer in this MIDI clip, which is the same notes as the one up there, but now they're in the right position, the right rhythm. Everything is exactly like what you're hearing in the music clip. So you can tell if you did it right or wrong, and then I hit you with some brain power. Now, to make it easy, I was playing those in a higher register so you could really identify the pitches. Higher register, octave, vocab word. Talk about what we learned, what's going on, a little lesson on the delay effects. Why only one note into the delay? The root note, the tonic, the fundamental, the root of the key signature. That note was bouncing around to anchor the key and bring us back to harmonic home, ding, which is pretty cool. You don't want to turn up the send A and have a ton of. I told you all that on video already, but I wanted to put it into the lesson so that when you're trying to play along with this track and it doesn't sound right, you could actually understand, oh, the reason it sounds different in the recording is because there is an effect on there. I wanted to make it complete. And then finally, at the end of the lesson, watch what happens. Okay, congratulations, you made it through another lesson. Now, I know this might not make you into the ultimate master bassline composer just right now, but let's review what we did, because these were some pretty cool things. Go to the next scene. So I just go through a quick review of how we learned the E-flat note, the E-flat minor scale, scale motion, playing octaves, playing along with a recording, and then how the delay effects change rhythm. So you get this whole little package in this cool lesson that's got audio in there, MIDI, and instructions. And I think if this is working right, by doing these examples, it's going to take you through a process that you can apply in your own music and actually write some cool bass lines where you understand what's happening, and you'll be able to do things like build chords on top. It's pretty easy to come up with a bass line by just fooling around and playing some notes, but then you get stuck, right? Let me go back in camera land on this for a second. What I remember this happened to me very clearly all the time before I went to music school. I didn't go to school until I was in my 20s. And what used to happen was I would write some music and get a cool bass line, and then when it came time to play chords on top, I was like, I don't know what's right or wrong. What do you do? And I would just fool around and find some notes and kind of like fake it. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And most of the time I would get frustrated because I didn't have a way to resolve anything back to a feeling of like arrival. Or now I know it's a harmonic home, returning to the starting place. But I didn't know how to do that because I didn't know how to build chords, because I didn't know how to build scales, because I didn't know what I was doing. So now, if you can learn how to identify bassline notes, put them into a scale, you're like 99% of the way towards being able to build the chords that fit that scale to make it sound harmonically connected. So your track is going to sound good. And I see this in the Mixotexture group a lot. We get people who are asking for track feedback, which is awesome. It's so much fun. And not every week, but once in a while, people put in a question. They're like, hey, how do I EQ my bass line? It doesn't sound right. And I'll listen to it and I'll be like, man, the bass line is playing notes that completely clash with the chord progression. So it's never going to sound right. No amount of EQing is ever going to fix that because it's harmonically not going anywhere. Sometimes people make tracks where there's a chord progression changing and the bass note stays on the same bass note the whole entire time. And I'm like, that's like sitting in the driveway, revving up your car until it's in the red line and then never putting it in gear to drive. You just burn out your engine. Don't do that. So my point was that sometimes something you perceive as a mix problem because it doesn't feel right emotionally is actually a theory problem where your bass line is not harmonizing your chord progression or vice versa. Or you have a melody where the melody notes are clashing with the bass line. These problems should be solved at the MIDI level to rewrite your harmonic and melodic parts so they gel and they coagulate together and make that thick harmonic that makes you feel good. So when people are listening to it, they're like, yeah, it's all cool. Because when your harmony is not lined up and your bass line doesn't work, it's like when your zipper's jammed and like the teeth aren't lined up and you're like, my zipper's stuck. I hope you like my examples. Hey, Samir's here. What's happening? So if you have any questions about theory or anything, type them in. I'm going to wrap it up right now. This is a little bit shorter than my usual ones, which is cool. I don't always want to make you watch a whole entire hour to get something useful out of it. But let me know if you like this and if you are getting something out of it, because I really dig teaching harmony and finding ways to make it super relevant for electronic music and also make it very easy for you to learn it inside Ableton. And while I'm waiting for any questions, I'm just going to dip back over to screen share. If you came in at the end, what I was showing you today was from this course called Harmony for Ableton Live Users, which is on the members site, courses.mixotexture.com. And you click into the block called Harmony for Ableton Live Users. And if you're interested in this topic at all, now is the time to sign up for this course because I'm building it as we speak. The course consists of a bunch of Ableton projects that you download, and there's system requirements and stuff. And it's super cheap right now. It's set up for pay what you want. I know we're all in quarantine and I'm not really sure if we're working or what's going on. So you could even get this whole course for $10. By the time it's done, it's going to have a bunch more modules: building chord progressions, building chords, building triads, building intervals, a combination of two notes, building scales. And right now we're at building bass lines to start it off with some fun stuff of actually playing bass lines along with music. So it's fun. Samir, hey. No questions coming in. Okay, cool. So Harmony for Ableton Live users, sign up now and you'll always have continual access as I build the rest of it. Now, none of these other modules like scales and intervals, those don't have lessons built yet. What I like to do, I found out this works best, is camera land. What works really well, I found in the last year, is doing a live video first and collecting people's impressions and questions about a topic. Then I make the session lesson and package it together so that I hit the actual things that people were struggling with and then put that on the site for download. So I know it's going to work. We basically tested this baseline lesson last week, and now I built the session lesson for it. So I wanted to show you what it looks like in the finished form and how much fun it is to go through it. It probably takes about 15 or 20 minutes maybe if you start at the beginning, play all the audio instructions going down, do the activities, practice a little bit, jam a little bit, maybe a half an hour, and then you'll have that example locked in and you'll even know an E flat minor scale that you can use later. So that's what it's all about. We're going to be building maybe a new lesson every week going on into the summer and using some of the 74 creative strategies stuff for illustration on how to construct scales. That's really useful for that. And by the end, we're going to have a thick course with melodies, harmonies, chord progressions, practical examples on all the above. And it's not going to be any $10. It's going to be a lot more than that. But don't let me just give you a sales pitch all day long. What happens if I press play? Now, let me get the actual music. I want to take out some ending music. Okay, congratulations. You made it through another lesson. Now, I know... Okay, there we go. All right, nobody's asking questions, so I'm going to wrap it up for today. A little plug for Friday. We're doing a mastering lesson with Andy Maleks from Estonia from Audio Coma Studios. And he's going to take a track that we mixed at 126 BPM house music, and he's going to do some mastering on there and show us what he hears, what he does, what is his thought process behind those decisions. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to apply this compressor. He's going to tell us, oh, I'm hearing this. I'm going to ask him these questions. I'll be like, hey, why did you decide to use that EQ? Why did you decide to use that limiter? And we'll get the truth out of him and hopefully hear some really cool music along the way. So that's coming up on Friday at noon. Tomorrow there's no live workshop because I'm doing prep and doing some other stuff. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions, if you're watching the replay and you have some questions, type them on in. I'll be happy to answer your questions. There we go. You got to wait for that drop. All right, that's it for me this time. See you guys later. Bye. Bye.